Did you ring it?
Yeah.
It didn't ring.
Well, it did ring.
I think I put it on silent too because it's in council. I'll never find it now.
Rightio. We ready?
Can't hear you.
You use a watch. Good to go? Yep. Hello and welcome to the May monthly council meeting for Corangamite Shire. I'm Mayor Kate Macon and I'll introduce the rest of the councillors around the room. I have Deputy Mayor Laurie Hickey, Councillor Ruth Castrain, Councillor Joe Beard, Councillor Jamie Bogles, Councillor Geraldine Canady and Councillor Nick Cole. I also have directors and managers around the table as well. I have Mr Sean Broadbent, Director of Works and Services, Miss Justine Linley, Director of Sustainable Development, Mr Jared Woff, Manager of Facilities and Recreation, Miss Belinda Bennett, Manager of Environment and Emergency, Mr John Kelly, Manager of Assets and Planning, Mr Xavier Flanagan, Director of Corporate and Community Services, Mr Albert Giorgini, Acting Manager of Finance, Miss Gabrielle Henry, Manager of Governance and Civic Support, and our CEO, Mr David Ray. I would now like to say the prayer. We ask for guidance and blessing on this council. May the true needs and well-being of our communities be our concern. Help us who serve as leaders to remember that all our decisions are made in the best interest of the people, culture and the environment of the Corangamite Shire. Amen. Corangamite Shire Council acknowledges and pays our respects to the Eastern Maar and Wadawurrung peoples. As the traditional owners of the lands that we work, live and play, we also acknowledge their elders, past and present, and recognise their ongoing cultural, spiritual and education practices. We have no apologies. We have no conflicts of interest. Councillors, there's a confirmation of minutes for the 28th of April 2026. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Cole, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hickey, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. There is no deputations or presentations tonight. There's no committee reports. There's no planning reports. So I'll move on to officer reports. 9.1 S11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Miss Henry.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This report sets out the legislative basis for Council to approve the appointment of authorised officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987 through the attached instrument of authorisation and appointment. This request has arisen due to the recent staff changes and the appointment of an external contractor in March 2026 to undertake planning enforcement work in the role of Planning Investigation Officer on behalf of Council. Mayor, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Henry. Recommendation before us, councillors. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Hickey. Councillor Strain, second it. Councillor Hickey.
Nothing, Mayor, this is procedural.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Strain?
No, nothing else.
Any other, no other comments on that one? So all those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you. I move on to item 9.2, the 2026-2027 draft budget. Mr Giorgini. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is to present the 2026-27 draft budget, incorporating the 26-27 fees and charges schedule in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 for the purposes of public exhibition. The budget aims to maintain Council's stable financial position in a challenging environment and includes significant capital works. The budget allocates resources annually to support the Council plan delivery and particularly the strategic initiatives. Mayor, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr Giorgini. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Hickey, Councillor Castrain. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be exclusive here. I'll make sure that I'll just say a few things and then allow others, because this is a very, very big document that is in front of us. And it's a big document because councils are required by law to provide essential services for things like animal management, maintaining local laws, food safety, statutory planning. But we still have a community expectation to deliver other items like libraries, sporting facilities, swimming pools and other services that we have been doing so for many years. That means that what we need to do and what the changing expectations of the community is that we have to create a balance between what we have and what we need to spend. Every decision involves balancing these priorities, delivering service, maintaining assets, investing in infrastructure, and ensuring that we're providing value for money for our ratepayers. This engagement, of course, that we're going through at the moment is it must be transparent and accountable, and it certainly is in meeting with our community expectations, but it is becoming more arduous. The rate capping of 2.75 has certainly been felt throughout this budget. Whilst our expectations as ratepayers go, the 2.75 is wonderful for the cost of living, but as a council to deliver some of the programs and services we need, it has been very tight. This CPI, well, the current CPI is 3% plus. I'm not sure what today's figure is, but of course the CPI is measured on the increased cost of a basket of items, and so rarely does a rural council like Corangamite go and buy a basket of items. So, whilst the CPI is a consideration, it's not their total consideration, and our CPI is likely to be much higher than what we see. So with that, this year's budget overall shows an operating deficit of 2.04 million, and it has been budgeted, but I just thought I'd touch on some of the capital works that do go into there, and there's plenty of other aspects of this budget that you'll be very aware of. So the capital works program will mean that we'll invest more than about $19 million in infrastructure that keeps our Shire moving and growing. The largest component of this is, with nearly $10 million committed, is for the rehabilitation of roads, for the upgrades, reseating and some resealing. We know the roads are constantly one of our biggest priorities for our residents, and this investment shows that we realise that and understand that. There's roads that are detailed in the draft budget papers are there for you to see, so you might be able to flick through it and find if your road is in amongst them. We're also investing $3.8 million into plant and equipment, ensuring that our outdoors crews have the machinery they need to deliver the services efficiently and safely right across the entire municipality. And importantly, we're making an investment to the Narrogid landfill to manage the increasing waste volumes and project long-term sustainability for our waste operations. Continually, our pools are ageing. They were built many years ago when back in the 50s and the 60s on the back of successful Olympic Games in Melbourne, and this infrastructure continually needs to be upgraded, which is a fair cost. So I might just leave it there and allow for others to have something to say as well, Mayor. But I believe this is a balanced and responsible budget. It focuses on renewable reliability and long-term planning while providing the infrastructure that our community expects and rightly deserve. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Castrain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I probably will repeat some of Councillor Hickey's comments. We certainly found ourselves in challenging economic climate when we were preparing this budget. The cost of resources, fewer government funding opportunities with greater competition, inflation, contractor cost and availability, cost shifting, the fuel crisis, which has seen us put an additional $500,000 in fuel for the first 6 months of the financial year, rate capping and its implications, and emergency management with fires and the Skipton, Lara-Lee, as well as the Otways. And the Council's limited ability to raise revenue outside of rates and charges and user fees. This budget is built from the ground up to ensure that we're able to continue to deliver our much needed services as financially efficiently as possible. We're in a stable financial position, but looking longer term, there will be a challenge to stay that way and be able to maintain service levels, something that will affect all local government areas. The 26-27 budget shows a budgeted operating expenditure of $48.5 million, which includes the $19 million of capital projects that Councillor Hickey's mentioned. We raised $27.8 million through rates and charges, and that is, as was mentioned, capped at 2.75, as well as fees. We have a significant reliance on annual financial assistance grants and roads to recovery funding through the federal government, which most importantly are untied grants, so they're not aligned to a specific project. Roads continue to be the greatest expense, with $9.9 million allocated. It's planned that we maintain our debt-free status this financial year, but again, this may not be the case as financial sustainability becomes harder to achieve. While the budget is tight, it was again discussed and debated by councillors in a constructive and respectful manner. We'd obviously like to be able to fund more projects, but in these times it's imperative that we cut our cloth accordingly, and I think we've achieved a good outcome. Can I thank the members of the public who made submissions to the budget process and encourage people to have a look through the budget papers before they're formally adopted on the 30th of June. Thank you to Mr Xavier Flanagan and the Director of Corporate and Community Services and his team for putting the budget together, and also to all council staff who've had input. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Constrain. Any other, Councillor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mayor. It's probably most of what I had in my notes has been said, but I did want to say that there was a lot of care taken in building this budget in looking out for sustainability, because, you know, as has already been mentioned, we are subject to a lot of challenges, the same as, you know, the public are too. So now we're experiencing decreased support from our state and federal counterparts, cost shifting and rising costs. So, you know, it was really a very, challenging process for the council team to build this budget before it even came to the councillors. And as Councillor Constrain said, you know, we did have quite a lot of debate about some of the capital expenditure because we are so conscious about our capacity to remain sustainable in the face of what, you know, the general economic environment looks like at the moment. But I am pleased that, right, so I don't have any, that's okay. I'm pleased that our focus remains on continued delivery of quality services. You know, we're thinking still about the functionality and the livability of our communities. Our capital outlay is mostly renewal. So, you know, from that perspective, we're caring for our community assets and through maintenance and upgrades to our buildings. I think there's already been quite a few of the capital expenditures that have been budgeted mentioned, so I won't say any more, apart from the Terrain Stadium, which I'm very pleased to say has 280k in the budget for new seating and other works. But I think too that, you know, we've managed to keep our fiscal management strong in the face of the difficulties we have. We've still got a really strong grant program. We've maintained that in our budget. Our financial measures are still sound. We've also got some important expenditure on the early years plan. We're getting in front of, getting on the front foot with regard to that with the state government changes to the early years education. So I think there's some really good elements in this budget. But as Councillor Constrain said, it's becoming more difficult to manage, you know, sustainability and balance. But we're doing our best.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Beard?
Thank you very much. To previous councillors for the words they've already spoken. I'm not going to go into detail around particular projects, but more around the actual process of what we went through and how challenging it was this year, not only because of the financial environment we're in, but also as an organisation and the challenges we had with, you know, our team behind it. It wasn't smooth sailing in terms of having not as many numbers at the table when we needed it, but it's nice to see we've got so many managers sitting here around this table today to actually see how much effort that they've put in the groundwork before the draft budget even gets to us. So thank you to you and your teams. If you could please take that back, because it does make our work when it gets to this part of it so much easier to work through what's in and what's out. And we really do hold your opinions and expertise opinions, I should add at that, with high esteem. So thank you, Mr Flanagan, to you and your team for pulling this all together. It wasn't an easy couple of days. It was certainly quite heavy, our conversations at times, because we knew that we're very proud of the fact that we continue to have a balanced budget. That's usually you know, it's not up for question ever, is it, that it has to be a balanced budget.
And the fact that we are actually running with a small debt, and I'm going to say it's a small deficit on the big scheme of things this year, which on my time on council we haven't had before, but there's a reason for that. I think it's a good deficit. We're still committed to all our services. We're still, putting significant dollars into our capital and making sure those things that mean the most to our ratepayers haven't been cut off at the knee. So I think we should be proud to get it to this draft process and see now putting it out to the community and seeing what the feedback is. It's not easy. I think neighbouring councils are having, everyone's having challenges this year. We almost have to run it no different to a household budget where, the cost of living is impacting everybody. And the fact that we have to continue to do business as usual through, times of crisis, it's really challenging. So we couldn't do this. We couldn't have got to this point alone. So again, I want to thank the staff. Really encourage our community members out there to have a look at the budget. It's somewhat hard to read sometimes, but certainly take time to look at the projects that are involved. Personally, for me, there's been a couple of projects that have been on the books for a long, long time, and it's nice to see that some of those are now going to finally get ticked off. But we're always interested in what the community have to give back in terms of feedback. So certainly encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Any other comments? Councillor Vogels?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to add much to the wealth of knowledge that's just come out, but see our renewal of assets ratio is slipping below 100%, which is always a thing that we've got to watch and maintain, because if you're not maintaining your assets, it comes back to bite you over time, and we can see that with our roads that haven't been maintained. So that comes back as a something that nobody wants to deal with over time, and I can't see things getting easier for a while. There's a lot of upward pressure on costs that we're dealing with, so things that we just got to watch out for. And I think rate capping, to me, is not the enemy. It's the guardrail that enforces us to live within our means and not put extra pressure on households to rein or to bring in more rates and stuff for stuff. But where we're at, we're still covering our community services and enabling infrastructure and stuff. We're our core values and our core business. We've just got to keep an eye on not taking on too much for current costs and getting stuff pushed down on us from government that we need to take on. So I think we're in a reasonably good position, and with the pressures that are on us.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. And can I just clarify, when you say roads, you are meaning?
State government roads.
Thank you, because we do enough in our roads, yes?
I think we've got a full budget, Madam Mayor. We're putting the normal amount into our assets, road assets and stuff. So they're high on the priority list of maintenance as always, even though they are generally lesser grade roads that we deal with, but we have a lesser grade budget to deal with them.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Any other comments? Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've adjusted my microphone. I'd like to congratulate the officers and staff for this. It's been a major work. It's been a lot of headaches, I think, getting it to a sort of semi-balanced or nearly balanced position, so we can live within our means. It's been a major job taking up a lot of time. I note one of the things I think is a major problem is the cost shifting. It continues apace. I think it's probably the major growth industry in the budget. We seem to be copping a lot of cost shifting coming on from all sorts of places. If it keeps going, we won't be able to. We'll have to cut back on certain things that we have to deliver, unfortunately. So it's just one of those things. If they keep, we've got a limited budget. We can't keep doing it and live within our means, so we'll have to sharpen our pencils probably next year and look at some items that have been funded and may not be able to be funded, unfortunately. So we've all got to live within our means and balance the books. The banks are pretty quick and active on shutting people down when they don't, especially if you run a farm or a small business. It's a big impost. So. And then we have to pay our taxes on top. So anyway, I congratulate the team and thank you for bring it in.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I think everything's been basically said. I also want to thank the team, the CEO, the ELT team, the finance team, and all the officers who have contributed to what is ultimately a very complex balancing act. Yes, this budget seeks to maintain services, continue investing in infrastructure, and supports our communities, all while operating in an increasingly difficult financial environment. And I know, as Councillor Castrena said, there was many robust discussions around the table and difficult decisions are made along the way. And I just want to acknowledge how professional and the perseverance of everyone throughout the process. So as much as we were robust and were supportive of lots of things around the table, we all did it in a very polite manner. So thank you for that. I also think it's important that we continue to ask ourselves the difficult questions around priorities and timing. There are projects within every budget that are worthwhile projects. The question is not always whether a project should occur, but whether it should occur now, particularly when resources are limited and competing demands continue to grow. But the reality is that local government continues to be asked to do more every year. New responsibility, new compliance requirements, additional reporting obligations, emergency management expectations, climate adaptation requirements, childcare reforms, waste reforms, and increasing community expectations continue to grow. Yet the funding to deliver these responsibilities does not grow at the same rate. We are constantly being told to live within our means, and rightly so. Households, businesses, and councils all have the responsibility to be financially responsible. I believe this council is doing exactly that. We are making difficult decisions, carefully prioritising expenditure and looking for efficiencies wherever possible. What concerns me is that while local government is expected to tighten our belts, other level of governments continue to transfer responsibilities down to councils without providing the funding required to properly deliver them. And this is not unique to Corangamite. Every rural council right across Victoria is facing exactly the same challenge, and I can guarantee you around their table they're having exactly the same robust discussions. Rate capping, it continues to make that challenge even harder. Unlike metropolitan councils, rural councils have very limited opportunities to generate additional revenue. We don't have parking meters, major commercial precincts, or significant alternative income streams. Rates remain our primary source of revenue. Yet our ability to increase the revenue is capped regardless of how much costs rise. So when you combine rate capping with inflationary pressures, increasing fuel costs, rising construction costs, growing compliance requirements, drought impacts, fire recovery, and continued cost shifting from both state and federal government, these pressures become significant. Individually, if each of these challenges can be managed collectively, they are creating a structural challenge for local government. My concern is not where we are today. My concern is where we'll be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time if this trend continues. What services will councils be forced to reduce? What infrastructure investments will be delayed? What opportunities will communities miss out on because councils simply do not have the financial capacity to contribute to these funds? So I'm quite proud of what the budget we're putting up today, the draft budget that we're putting up today. It reflects responsible financial management in a very difficult environment, and I look forward to seeing what the public have to say when we put it out for public consult for the next 10 or so days. Councillor Hickey, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I would just make the point that this is a draft budget at this stage, so consultation still needs to be listened to. But at this stage, it is a deficit budget. We still haven't taken into account the extra grants or some extra income that may come along. We just hope and pray that is very much a factor. And we look forward to Mr. Flanagan and his team maybe improving that position as the year goes through. But one thing I'd have to say is that we're very, very proud of the fiscal discipline that has been showed through the staff and through all councillors. Admittedly, we were able to get the Camperdown Football Netball Club upgrade through, and also the Terang Stadium, which was great. But the fiscal discipline is going to ensure that we do stick to this budget, and hopefully deliver a better result at the end of 12 months. So thanks, Mayor. That's all I was going to say.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, there's a motion before us. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.3, revocation of information technology policies. Mr Flanagan.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This report recommends revoking the domain user account password and endpoint security policies as council policies, as they are operational in nature and application. These policies are more suitably managed internally as organisational policies, allowing more timely updates while continuing to apply to council use and council IT systems. Mayor, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr Flanagan. Councillors, there's a recommendation before you. Councillor Beard, do I have a seconder? Councillor Vogels, Councillor Beard.
Yes, I was quick on that one, Madam
You
Mayor.
were very quick.
Very happy just to move that one. It is purely operational and it should be sitting internally within the organisation, not at council.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Vogels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Much agreed. It's a practical common sense update. I think it, with the speed of cyber things that are changing, and you need to keep on top of them these days. So yeah, faster.
Ability.
Yes, we need to be on top of things faster, anyways, to keep on top of how quickly they're changing. Timeliness is a good word.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Any other comments? I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.4, local laws related policy. Ms Bennett.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. So this policy seeks Council's consideration for a suite of policies to support implementation of the general local laws. There are 10 policies presented that relate to various activities on council land and private land. The policies support the regulation of these activities in accordance with the local laws to provide for community safety and to manage any adverse impacts to community and to the environment. The policies are intended to provide both community and council officers with guidance on the application of the local laws, so things like when a permit's required, when it's not required, what activities are allowed or not allowed, and permit conditions. All 10 policies are existing policies that have been reviewed in accordance with the new general local law. And there's a table in the report that outlines the key changes related to each of the policies. The changes are primarily administrative, updating legislation, updating references to the general local law, or providing additional clarity or clarifying council's position to make it clearer for people to understand. The recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Bennett. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Hickey, Councillor Canady, Councillor Hickey.
Hey, thank you, Mayor, and I'm so glad to see all these policies been placed together. The 10 of them as one lump sum. So I'm quite happy about that. We have indeed been through through every one of them individually, and recognise the changes are somewhat small, but nevertheless important. And I think I did mention at last meeting just how important policies are to our organisation, because they provide the guardrails for us to be able to act consistently, but also act within the best interests of the organisation. So very happy to move these 10 in one go. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Ms Bennett and her team for the months of work that have gone into this. I mean, there's a lot of policies in here. And, you know, you've brought a briefing to us on several occasions, and, you know, there's been long conversations, advice, legal advice too, about these updates. So thank you so much for the huge effort you've put in, Ms Bennett. It's yeah, we're the lucky recipients of it, and so is our community. I know we do have the overall guidance of the general local law, which commenced in December 25, but Councillor Hickey did say, like, our community needs to know that each of these policies actually has been individually reviewed and updated, so it hasn't been a blanket approach. Each policy has been taken and you know, reviewed on its merits, and there's been a lot of attention paid to the detail in those policies, and also to the clarity, you know, in the way the requirements of those policies are expressed so that it's easier for the community to understand that detail and the requirements of those policies. And having said that, I mean, all these policies really are aimed at supporting our community and supporting our amenity and also community safety. I would say in terms of the clarity and the ease of understanding, in my own ward not so long ago, there was some a community group that had some difficulty with understanding the requirements around traffic management and use of council land, and that was a really good example of how we needed to provide that clarity in these policies. In some of them, it just needed to be improved, and also, to seek legal advice to make sure that we're doing everything as it should be done. And I'm really confident that we've got it right. And I know Ms. Bennett is really meticulous about the work she does. So I'm very, very confident in seconding this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canady. Any other? Councillor Castrain?
Thank you, Mayor. Like one of the policies, and that's the nature strip planting policy. We're seeing more and more nature strips being planted out by adjacent landowners, and there's two changes, and one is they've removed the restrictions on planting of edible plants and restricted the planting of noxious and environmental weeds. So if you're thinking about planting on your nature strip, it might be worthwhile to reference that policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Castrain. Any other? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.5, Livestock Policy, May 2026. Ms Bennett.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So livestock policy is a new policy following commencement of the general local laws in December last year. It guides the application of the local laws in relation to livestock, primarily guiding the movement, grazing and driving of livestock on council land and roads. Whilst it is a new policy, there's not actually any substantial changes to the requirements. Previously, these requirements were captured in the livestock local law, which is now revoked, and the use of council land policy. This new policy really is just an administrative change to align with the new local law, as well as, again, make it clearer for the community around what the requirements are. There's a recommendation before you.
Councillor, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Vogels, Councillor Castrain. Oh, Councillor Canady, sorry, Councillor Vogels.
Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this was a local law, now it's a policy. Just makes it easier for changing and updating stuff if need be. I think the bottom line is there's no new burdens, no new fees, no new restrictions, just clearer guidance. Currently it looks like 150 permits on a peppercorn lease for grazing the roadsides. This can be extremely important for bushfire management and just neat and tidy compared to stuff that gets out of control. There's a lot of stuff in there that protects native vegetation from overgrazing and various other things. So it's good that we can keep this going, even as a policy instead of a law. Potato.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Councillor Canady.
Nothing more than to say that it just makes perfect sense for this to be in a separate policy.
Thank you, Councillor Canady. Any other? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.6, the Curtis Catchment Flood Study. Ms Bennett.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So this report presents the final findings of the Curtis Flood Study. So the flood study is a project council's worked on in partnership with the Corangamite CMA since 2024. It's looking at the flood investigation on priority reaches of the Curtis catchment and looking at all types of flooding risk. The aim of the strategy is to get to a point where we can better understand the flood risks across the catchment, to be able to better prepare and respond to those flood risks, as well as look at ways that we can mitigate flood risk. The study involved modelling to map the flood risk across the catchment for rainfall events, which also included future climate change projections. This methodology is consistent with established approaches around flood investigations and is outlined in further detail in the report. Using that flood mapping, the the flood study assessed the flood impacts on properties, including which properties would be flooded under different rainfall events, which roads, and including which properties would have potentially above fall flooding. The study also looked at the annual average cost of flood damage and estimated that in the catchment to be at $413,000 per year is the average of what flooding costs in that catchment. It also looked at several options to mitigate flood risk on priority roads and at the Cobden Pool, and undertook a cost benefit analysis on these, which showed that whilst the cost benefit analysis wasn't positive in that these upgrades take a lot of money, but don't necessarily reduce damages a lot. That doesn't necessarily factor in the broader community benefit from looking at these mitigations. A key output of the study was the development of draft mapping and documentation for an amendment to the Corangamite planning scheme. So incorporating this flood intelligence into the planning scheme is a really important step to help mitigate the future flood impacts, ensure that future development is appropriate to the level of flooding risk. The study recommends the application of several overlays in areas that are subject to flooding, as well as using building regulations to manage flooding risks where the risks are lower. The draft planning scheme mapping is included in the report. It is important to note, however, that since the study commenced, there's been changes announced by the Victorian Government around a state-led approach to incorporating flood studies into local planning schemes. If this flood study is adopted by council, officers will then work with Department of Transport or Planning and the CCMA to then progress this to a planning scheme amendment. And a critical part of this planning scheme amendment will be further consultation with the community on the mapping. Other, I guess, important next steps around this study will be incorporating the flood intelligence into our municipal flood and storm emergency plan, which essentially we use and SES use to guide flood response, and also making the flood mapping available on Council's flood portal, which is currently being developed. There's a recommendation before you.
Thank you, Ms Bennett. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Vogels, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cole. Councillor Vogels.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. And at first, I'd like to thank Ms Bennett for her detailed involvement in the project. This is just the Curtis River, not the tributaries at this stage. So just the actual Curtis itself. And I think it's been a really good study, and it gives us the most complete picture we've ever had of how the flooding behaves through this whole system, through the riverland, the riverine, the overland, the storm surge is a big part of it, and the influence on the estuary mouth down at Peterborough. And this work finally fills a long-standing knowledge gap that we've had. So I want to acknowledge the significant funding support that's made possible through Emergency Management Victoria and DECA through the CCMA. And the CCMA will benefit a lot from this work as well, especially through the Curtis Consultative Committee for blue-green algae and stuff. I also want to thank the community, the landholders, the residents and volunteers to provide historic flood photos, on-ground observations and practical knowledge that help validate the modelling. And validate the modelling, it actually it did when they put up the comparisons and stuff between what they predicted and what was happening. And a massive shout out to the citizen science volunteers, because their dedication over many years of collecting and measuring has provided data that has strengthened the accuracy of the study, and that's in a way that no desktop model ever could. So a big thank you to the citizen science who go out and take all these measurements and tests and stuff off their own bat. They're really good people. And this study will directly support our emergency services by improving warnings, road closures, decisions and emergency planning into the future. And adopting this study gives us better information, better preparedness, better protection for our people, property and our roads. It also ensures future development is appropriate for where there's flood risk, with full community consultation to come in the near future. So I support the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Vogels did a wonderful job summing all that up. Very good. I've always wondered about these things. Nature plays by its own rules quite often, and whenever you plan for nature, it will bite you in the bum usually. And they have 1 in 100-year floods and 1 in 200-year floods. Well, we've only been here for the blink of an eyelid, really. So it's very hard to plan all these things. We do get dry years, we get very, very wet years, and we get extraordinarily wet years. So all the planning in the world doesn't help sometimes a major flood, and they can come very quickly and things, but this will help. So it's a good job, well done. But it helps with building bridges and culverts and things like that, which we need to keep the joint functioning really. And I think it's a great study, but these things are still very pie in the sky sometimes, because as I said, nature can bite you in the bum big time. So yeah, I'm quite happy to move it though. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 9.7 Mount Laura and Mount Sugarloaf Committee nominations and annual report for 2026. Miss Bennett.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. There's 3 parts to this report. The first part is the Mount Laura, Mount Sugarloaf Management Plan and Risk Management Plan. So this is a current plan that guides the committee's activities on the reserves. It was developed back in 2013, so was well due for a review to reflect current progress achieved, but also to update around legislative requirements. The committee's revised and updated the plan, which is attached to the report. The revised plan maintains the vision and objectives of the original plans, but really with additional actions around how to work towards achieving that, as well as reflecting some of the current risks and opportunities, things like cultural burning on the reserves. The second part of the report is a annual update from the committee on the activities undertaken over the past 12 months. It's been another really big year for the committee, with some of the key highlights, including planting just over 1,200 Indigenous plants and reserves, including some new species to the reserves. Another really successful 4 Peaks Challenge in partnership with Mount Noorat and Mount Elephant, with over 100 people attending that. And NAIDOC Week activities as well, which were well attended. None of this could be possible without the power of many volunteer hours. And conservatively, the committee estimate there's at least 1,000 hours contributed to the reserves in the past 12 months from not only the committee members who are volunteers, but also Friends of Mount Laura and the broader community. And the third part of the report, leading on from volunteers, is that the committee has, in accordance with the instrument of delegations, need to advertise 2 positions annually every year. Those 2 positions vacancies were advertised in March for a 3-year term each. 3 nominations were received to be on the committee, which were assessed by 5 of the committee members. Based on this assessment, the committee recommend that Carolyn Dinehoven and Frances Grundy be appointed to the committee for a 3-year term. So thank you. There's a before you.
Thank you, Ms Bennett. Councillors, there's a recommendation before you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hickey. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Castrain. Councillor Hickey.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, Ms Bennett, for the report that you've presented for us too. Mount Sugarloaf and Mount Laura are very obvious on our landscape and very much loved assets that are managed by this Committee of Management. They do a wonderful job maintaining the plantings on the side of the mounts, and also the risk management plan that goes towards the assets too. It's fabulous to see that Ms Grundy and Ms Dinehoven are reappointed again, as I know they're very, very active members of the committee. And it would be remiss of me not to mention the other committee members who would just say 1,000 hours contribute over the year, which is incredible to have that sort of commitment to an asset like this. I commend them for providing that service. And also the reserve management update is also in part of this recommendation. So very, very happy to move this, and yes, it's just great that we've got these assets within our wards.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Castrain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and we certainly are very lucky to have these assets and to have such dedicated volunteers that manage them on Council's behalf. We've reviewed the group have reviewed the management plan and highlighted a number of completed projects. But what they do have ahead of them is they're maintaining their vision, and they've got key objectives with new actions and priorities, including planting for ecological resilience. They're also planning on improving accessibility through upgrades to paths and tracks, improving facilities at the education centre and across the reserve, maintaining view lines at priority sites, understory revegetation along with thinning in some areas, interpretive information signage, monitoring invasive planting, and creating an events calendar with Friends of Mount Lura. They certainly do know how to attract grants as well. They seem to do very well in that department. We talk about the volunteer hours, and I think it's amazing at 1,000 hours, but I really question, Ms Bennett, about $25 an hour. There's not many people work for $25 an hour, so it's been that for a number of years. I think we can always bump that up a bit. I'd also like to acknowledge the partnership that the committee and Friends of Mount Lura have with Camperdown College. That's been ongoing for many, many years, and certainly thank the college for their involvement. Congratulations to Fran Grundy and Carolyn Deinhoven on their reappointment. I think Fran's been on there a significant amount of time and dedicated many, many hours. And I also thank the unsuccessful applicant and encourage them to be part of the Friends of the Mount Lura group. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Castrain. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We go on to item 9.8, Business Assistance Scheme, May 2026 applications. Miss Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Business Assistance Scheme provides business building owners and the community with the opportunity to apply for support, including financial assistance from Council's frugal budget allocation, annual budget allocation of $50,000. Applications are assessed on merit in considering the eligibility criteria and available funds. For the month of May, we've received one application for Stream 1, the business facade improvement component of the grant, and this has been recommended for assistance for consideration by Council. That application was received by the trustee for RPAN Nominees Trust, that's Foodworks Lismore, for new business identification signage for an amount requested of $1,775 excluding GST. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Miss Lindley. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Castrain. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cole. Councillor Castrain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm more than happy to move this for new signage up at the Lismore Foodworks. And just to remind people that there are 4 streams in the Business Assistance Fund. There's the facade improvement, which is what we're seeing today, creative industries and placemaking, community enterprise projects and fees and enabling infrastructure. But importantly, the amount allocated might have been frugal, Mrs. Lindley, but there is just under $15,000 still available for businesses and community groups. So you've got till the end of the financial year. Otherwise, yes, you can't miss out. So please get your applications in. Contact our Eco Dev staff if you need assistance.
Thank you, Councillor Castrain. Councillor Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I do note there's been a few businesses sold up in Derrinallum and Lismore very recently, so they might be after some more signage. I hope they do. That generally tidies the place up a little bit when they get the signs repainted and things like that. They've been there for quite a while, and makes them look a little bit more attractive to people coming through and things. So anywhere in the Shire is open to these grants and a business in the town, so making them available.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Move on to item 9.9, Recreation Reserve Management Policy. Mr. Woff.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. This report recommends adoption of a revised Recreation Reserves Management Policy as a guide to the funding and management arrangements for recreation reserves located within the Corangamite Shire. It notes that the reserves play a significant role in the community, and the provision of support through this policy helps volunteers manage those rec reserves. The policy has been reviewed and proposes some amendments which include reference to the management arrangements and responsibilities of the Port Campbell and Princetown recreation reserves, an addition of a category acknowledging additional reserves. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Woff. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Beard. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Canady. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, and it's probably should be me that talks to this one because it was me that put a hold up on it previously when it came to council and requested it to go on hold so we could actually brief on it. So it came about following a concern raised by particularly one of the Recreation Reserve committees of inequity. So I really want to say thank you to councillors who I guess indulged me to speak more to that as we briefed through this particular policy, and that we're going to give it 12 months before we have another review, but just to enable some other funds to be rolled out to recreation reserves that have previously missed out. It is a really important policy that we do keep an eye on because of the changing environment in which we see these volunteer groups and the I guess the impacts that they're feeling, having to help maintain these facilities. So I just want to thank you all for taking on board, I guess, the explanation I gave behind it and for supporting the introduction of a third tier. And all we can do is see how it goes, but I have no doubt that those recreation reserves or those facilities that have now been picked up in this maintenance fund will certainly appreciate that. And I guess it's again, it just shows our commitment to these facilities and how we couldn't look after them without these people. So whether it's our facility or it's Crown land, at the end of the day, they're being used and they need to be looked after. So thank you everyone for that. So happy to move that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Canady?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this policy really is it's about community support and benefit, which is so important, and we value that so much at this council. And I do want to thank the committee volunteers at those recreation reserves, because they're so generous to give their time for the work they do. The work can be time consuming and sometimes frustrating, but they do a remarkable job. And I think especially for those that are running the reserves that are owned by DECA, because sadly DECA chooses not to support those committees very much, and they've put almost nothing in terms of renewal or upkeep into those recreation reserves. So the committees do an incredible job, really, and through this policy we're able to provide some support to them to help them with their work. The addition of the new category, I think that was a good decision, and I'm happy to see it there because, as Councillor Beard pointed out, there were some other reserves that were probably overlooked, you might say, over the years, but happy that they've now been included in a new category for support. And I think we have found that this policy has been working really well to support those recreation reserves and recreational spaces. So I'm happy to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canady. Any other comments? Nope. All right, put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thanks. Item 9.10, Fair Access Policy Review. Mr. Woff.
And through you, Mayor, the purpose of this report is for Council to consider the Fair Access Policy, which seeks to address known barriers experienced by women and girls in accessing and using community sports infrastructure. The Fair Access Policy aims to support Council to take positive steps and positive action towards achieving gender equity in the access and usage of community sports infrastructure. The policy has been designed to build capacity and capabilities of Corangamite Shire to ensure an effective place-based response for the gender equitable use and access of community sports infrastructure, and to promote gender equality in policies, programs, communications and services as they relate to that community sports infrastructure. An action plan has been developed in line with the Fair Access Policy to support continued delivery of gender equity outcomes. Council's Fair Access Policy has been reviewed with only minor amendments recommended. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Woff. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Canady, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Beard, Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this policy, I think it's about equality of opportunity, which we don't always see when it comes to gender equity. But I think what it means really is that gender equity is not a side issue. It's something that we need to make a conscious effort for. So that conscious effort for inclusion and access and fairness, because sometimes we're not always, have that awareness around in our minds, but through council, when we've by developing this policy, we're trying to make that something that becomes more normal in the organisation. I think though our communities, like, they do have quite an awareness of the value of gender equity, but we know that it takes time and effort to reach a fair balance, and because some of us have been better at that than others. I do like the 6 principles that have been adopted for the policy. I think they're absolutely achievable. But, I think at the same time, I think within our organisation and also in the wider community, what we've got the mindset for gender equity and inclusion, I think it's developing well. And I think, this policy sort of goes towards, certainly within our organisation, ensuring that continues to happen. And I also like that we've got an action plan developed alongside the policy, because I think that demonstrates our commitment to the gender equity outcomes that we're trying to achieve. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Beard?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Just reiterating that this policy only applies to facilities, sporting facilities that are owned or managed by council. So for me, this policy is our way of putting our best foot forward to show that we're helping lead the way, but also controlling what we can control. We can help, steer other organisations and, whether it be organisations or associations, into the right direction of what's best practice. But at least we're putting, our best foot forward and controlling what we can. So I think this policy is really important, and it does certainly help guide facilities going forward. So, and reiterating exactly what Councillor Kennedy said. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.11, decommissioning former Camperdown sale yards and truck wash. Mr. Woff.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. In June 2024, the lease of the Camperdown sale yards held by Regional Livestock Exchange concluded, and operations at the site ceased. The site has since remained vacant, and this report seeks Council's consideration of the decommissioning of that site, including the removal of remaining fittings and infrastructure. Given the condition of that existing infrastructure, there is an opportunity to consider the disposal of those assets in line with Council's disposal of assets policy. Council's recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Woff. Council, there's a recommendation for us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Hickey, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cole. Councillor Hickey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was only a young fellow really when the new sale yards were opened up back in the early 70s, and what an exciting time that was for the rural community. It meant we moved from the existing yards that were there by the railway station out to a green area with plenty of truck parking and plenty of access from both sides. And in that time, it has become had become a hub of trade, social connection, and certainly one of employment for many, many people, myself being one back in the early days. But unfortunately, with the continual upgrades of the place, with increased lighting, with better loading races and ramps, with the scales included, with the dirt yards and the roof over those yards, it still wasn't enough to continually attract throughput for the yards. So producers have been favouring to go to other facilities and sell online, which has meant that the operation of those yards has become somewhat unsustainable and unfinancial. So it is very sad that for something that was such a hub of the community has declined to where it is at the moment, and the disposal of the asset is probably going to be something that most people will drive past and watch, and certainly have some affiliation with the place, I would imagine. there is a Camperdown Sale Yards master plan in development for future years of its use. However, at this stage, the motion is to decommission it, and also decommission the truck wash. And just on notice, I will ask later the CEO for the update of what the future of a truck wash facility within the Corangamite Shire is. But yes, it is with somewhat a heavy heart that I move this recommendation, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like Councillor Hickey. I can remember sitting in the rotunda at the original sale yards in Camperdown with my grandfather and my father. And I do also note, I was trying to work out, there was sale yards at Darlington, Lismore, Timboon, I remember going to. All these little regional yards now have gone, and it's all being centralised in one big operator, and that operator owns many regional sets of sale yards now, and the pressure's on. I also note that I think they're selling all those yards. They're being sold to a bigger company, and that worries me a bit. It becomes a bit like Coles and Woolworths in a lot of ways. So big companies own the whole lot, and infrastructure and just dictate the prices. But unfortunately, the fate of these smaller regional yards is just compliance and everything else is getting beyond what a small council can run now, unfortunately, and especially as Councillor Hickey noted that the truck wash, we do need a truck wash in this area very badly to keep going. A lot of stock come out of this area and go to various other spots. We do need them. So they're an unseen sort of piece of infrastructure, essential infrastructure. However, we have to deal with what's going on, and unfortunately we have to decommission this at the moment. So I'm unfortunately not happy to move it, but it has to be done, unfortunately, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.12, Essential Safety Measures Policy. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, this report recommends adoption of a revised essential safety measures policy, which aims to ensure that essential safety measures within council-owned and occupied buildings are maintained in accordance with relevant legislation, regulations and Australian standards. The policy has been reviewed with only minor amendments proposed to reflect updates to current strategic plans and those relevant standards. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Councillor, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Castrain. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Councillor Castrain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's certainly an important policy, making sure that we have safe buildings and everything's in working order, but it's mainly procedural changes, so I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Castrain. Councillor Hickey.
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Nothing else to add. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Moving on to item 9.13, proposed part road discontinuous adjacent to Cobden Recreation Reserve. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, this report seeks council approval to the part discontinuation of a slithers of road reserve alongside the Cobden Rec Reserve in Lord and Adams Street, Cobden. With this, it would enable the resulting land to be transferred to the Crown and incorporated into the Cobden Rec Reserve. Currently, there's existing boundary fence lines of the Rec Reserve are encroaching approximately 4 metres and 1.5 metres into the Lord Street and Adams Street road reserves, respectively. Also, there's in recent years, a netball court shelter has been installed to that Lord Street fence line, and also the Rec Reserve Committee of Management has prepared plans for a redevelopment of the sports pavilion, which will the proposal is to extend to the existing Lord Street fence line. So with these adjustments to the road reserves boundaries, the existing fence lines will remain in their current position, so there's no changes there. Council infrastructure and also the community will not be impacted by these changes. So it is recommended the partial discontinuation of Lord Street and Adams Street as presented be approved by council.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Beard. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Canady. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. It's important to note that even though it does state that it's road discontinuation, it's actually not the road itself. I've had queries within the community of people saying, why is the road going to be shortened? So I had to explain what it was all about. Just to give a little bit of context, when I was growing up, little girl opposite across the road from the rec reserve, I can recall there being massive cypress trees. And then they bulldozed them down, and a fence would have been put up, assuming back in the same place as either where the trees were or there was an old fence line. To me, this is a historic error, where the fence line just doesn't match up with probably what the surveyed title is. So this has been rectified. It's an oversight. It's not a big deal. I'm glad it's we get to deal with it through local government rather than through the state government, because that can be quite a lengthy and quite a head spinning, I would say, process to go through. So I'm glad that we're able to help rectify this. What do we call it?
Historical error.
Historical error. Oopsie. Yeah, thank you. But happy to move that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Canady.
Nothing much to add really, other than it's the obvious thing that needs to be done, and it's not going to impact negatively on the road reserve anyway, for it to be transferred across to the Crown. So I'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Canady. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 10 is other business. Councillors, do we have any items of you'd like to raise? I'll go Councillor Hickey first.
Yes, I do, Mayor. And it pertains to the truck wash, which of course has been decommissioned. And I go back through my notes now, and it was well over 12 months ago when I first raised this issue in this chamber, asking that we give careful consideration to the risk of disease spreading throughout the Shire, and mitigating these risks by having an adequate truck wash and using diligent practice and adherence to biosecurity protocols to make sure that all sectors of the community are free from disease that can be spread very, very quickly. At that time, there was a task force formed, a report that was commissioned by the Corangamite Shire at some expense, but still I was just interested to know, and are many of the other users of that truck wash facility, just where we're up to as far as that report and what's happening with the truck wash in a simple question.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, rightly said, Councillor Hickey. I've been a member of the Victorian Truck Wash Steering Committee for the last 12 months. It's been quite a journey, to be honest, having been involved with that committee, and more broadly, there's been I guess a report prepared, and that has been submitted to the Minister with some recommendations from that review. At the present time, I'm not at liberty to disclose what those recommendations are until the Minister has made them public. But what I can say is that the review does recognise the inadequacy of truck wash facilities, not just within Corangamite Shire, but more broadly across rural and regional Victoria. I'm optimistic that there'll be funding streams available for both for the private sector to leverage and to establish regional facilities. Also, I think it is recognised that this is not just an industry issue. It's a broader issue that needs to be solved by both all players, the private sector and various levels of government. So there's more to come in this space, and at the earliest opportunity, I can make that available to Council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, I'd like to raise yet again, following as Councillor Hickey said in this chamber back in January on the 27th, I raised a concern on behalf of the Cobden Aerodrome Community Asset Committee in relation to the disregard to aviation concerns in relation to the Mumblin Wind Farm and the proximity of that proposed facility or project. I really want to highlight some indiscrepancies and just some issues that have arisen since then, but also ultimately the request would be to still follow up those concerns are where they're now laying. The skeptic in me, I'm going to think back to 12 months ago, the Mumblin Wind Farm project, which had been before the planning minister, which was lodged a few years ago, with many objections locally, which many people know about, was withdrawn as an application and then resubmitted under the newly formed development facilitation program, which the state government set up. That was to basically fast track renewable energy projects, so they didn't have to go through the arduous, lengthy time of having to go through community consultation, whether there be objections to have to go through VCAT process, basically fast tracking and speeding up the transition, ultimately the transition to renewable energy. So pretty much bypassing processes that have always been in place before where community have had a say. As I said, that's the skeptic in me that sees this process now as completely been hijacked, that community concern is being completely disregarded. We own and operate the Cobden Aerodrome. It is council's facility. The Cobden Aerodrome Community Asset Committee is in place there to look after that and oversee the use of that site on our behalf. We need to be really concerned that we are not being listened to. The submissions, the two very detailed and lengthy submissions that have been provided to the state government through the planning process have completely been ignored. The issues that we have signalled has been that if that Mumblin Wind Farm goes ahead, it is literally, I think it's 4 nautical miles, 7.5 kilometres, if you'd rather speak in those terms, within that area. So it's not even on the edge of the operations of the Cobden Airstrip. It's actually within the area of its use. There's a misunderstanding or a complete disregard to the type of use that comes out of that facility. We know firsthand the operation that was carried out there on the day of the 27th of January when we had the massive fire breakout at Larralee, that affected many of our farmers and really put the township of Lismore under threat. If that aviation support crew hadn't been called in and utilised the Cobden Airstrip on that particular day, I'd hate to think what happened. But the circuit that those pilots were undertaking to access the firebombing, let's call it, they'll filling up with their water, and that's where they were having, just trying to think, I'm looking at Mr. Hickey, Councillor Hickey for that, but where they do their quick fill, that's the word, their quick fill of water, their circuiting in the airspace would have been encroached by the turbines. So the impact alone just on our emergency service response. We've also have medical emergency, whether it be fixed wing or helicopters use that space. Our commercial pilots who service our farmers through agricultural spraying, all these planes and pilots are going to be impacted by these turbines, and I just can't understand how we can again be treated with total disregard as to why they shouldn't be getting consulted with. There is, they're saying they've been having conversations with the industry, but that has not occurred, and even the proponents admitted to that consultation didn't occur with people within that airstrip committee, if it only them, but even industry users. So that to me is enough to make me really wild. I'd also like to make mention that sorry, I'm just looking at some notes here. The actual aircraft space in which these turbines are going to be placed, if they go ahead, will basically shut Cobden Aerodrome down. So if the state can't acknowledge that and the significance of impact that will cause this region, then I'm lost for words. So I'm actually calling upon again to reiterate on behalf of the committee the concern that our submissions have been completely overlooked. I think, question how the state government can get away with such an act on behalf of the proponents when in local government our assessors can't do such a thing. Like if any planning applications come in, there's so many reports, and particularly technical reports that or even objections, we just have to take that into account. So why doesn't the state government have that same level of vigor? Rigor. That's a great word. Thank you. Because it's just not fair. So I think in closing, I would like to just say, can that please be followed up? I think I'd love for the media to get on board with this. This is going to be a massive issue. It's quite concerning, and I'm scared that this will just be rubber stamped. And if it happens to a place like this, when we know how much value and how important that asset is to a community like ours, and what else can be done in the future. So I think we need to stand up and support it.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to just talk to this too. On the other side of it, I think the farming implications are big, because if we get a wet winter and things, you can't get a tractor across a lot of, especially the southern areas. And a plane is probably the only way you can do it. But the other way I'm looking at it is, as was mentioned, is the emergency service stuff. I remember being on the ground at the Leslie Manor fire and watching the planes come through, bombing the fires, and that allowed a grader to go through behind the area with the plane had bombed. The grader could then go through safely and make a bare earth break, and then the fire trucks could defend that. Without those planes coming through, we would have had no hope of stopping those fires. So they're vitally important. And for Leslie Manor, a flight to Leslie Manor to Cobden is not a long way, but it's a very much a vital way of doing it. And we can get the planes there, bomb the fires, and keep going, which helped steer the fires into the lakes. And so if we didn't have that ability, and that we would, God knows where the fires would have ended up. So yeah, I think it's hugely important that we maintain this airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other business, councillors? Oh, Councillor Constrain, sorry.
Good news, I think.
Oh, please, thank you.
Madam Mayor, and that's just to congratulate Bukar's Penny Smith, who recently hit 30 out of 30 targets to win the Women's Trap Shooting World Cup round in Kazakhstan. So she was a bronze medalist last year in Paris, and she's gone on to this. So well done, Penny.
Yes. Well done. Congratulations. No other general business. No notice of motions. Item 11 is open forum. Mr. CEO, do we have some open forum questions?
Madam Mayor, there are no open forum questions, but there are a couple of matters I need to bring to your attention, if I may, please.
Yes, please.
Firstly, is related to a written submission submitted prior to today's meeting from Ken and Nola Farquharson regarding a proposed footpath adjacent to their property in Walker Street, Cobden. The submission or the questions have been put in writing to council, and those questions have been circulated to both councillors and relevant officers. And given the nature of the questions, I will ask Mr. Broadbent to provide a brief response and perhaps what we'll do about that.
Thank you, Mr. Broadbent.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Mr. Ray. First, I'd like to thank the Farquharsons for their submission. The proposed footpath in Walker Street in the current draft budget is expected to provide connectivity for residents walking to the shopping strip in Curtis Street in the north and to the circuit path in Tanderook Park in the south. Our standard arrangement for our footpaths is generally to have the edge of footpath around 300 mil from the property line. There are some instances where paths have been constructed closer to the road curb than this in the past, and subject to the adoption of the 26-27 budget and the inclusion of this Walker Street footpath, we're happy to work with the Farquharsons on this Walker Street footpath to see what we can do in relation to the path alignment, take into consideration existing services and vegetation in this particular location.
Thank you, Mr. Broadbent. You said there was 2 matters arising.
Yeah, the second matter, Mayor, is in relation to a petition. Unfortunately, the lead petitioner is not able to be here to table that petition today, so I've been asked on their behalf to do so. So the petition we have received is in relation to a planning permit that's currently advertised, and that is PP 2026/046 in relation to a proposed freestanding, non-illuminated major promotion site. But the petition also effectively encompasses a planning permit objection, which I will talk to that matter shortly. And what the petition essentially is doing is objecting to the permit, and the objection states that the installation will broadly have a negative visual impact and change the real character to the entrance of Lismore. So, Mayor, on behalf of the lead petitioner, firstly, I would ask that you accept the petition on their behalf. And I think in relation to that, I would like to also thank the lead petitioner and petitioners for taking the time to put pen to paper, so to speak, and present this. In relation to our response to the petition, we will respond at the next council meeting in relation to the petition itself. The planning team will deal with the objection under the Planning Environment Act and also in accordance with the council's policies as well. So you'll see a future report on the petition and at a future time, if appropriate, a report on the planning permit.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ray. Thank you for those people who've put that petition in. Thank you very much for the lead petitioner as well. No other open forum, so then we move on to, I do have confidential items, so I just need a motion to suspend standing orders. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Cole, Councillor Hickey, thank you. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. So thank you very much for watching today for our May meeting. Keep warm, keep safe, and we'll